everybody. I'm Alyssa from Meditative Astrology, and today I'm here to talk with you about the astrology of July 20th through 26th. We have several different things to talk about this week, so before we get right into all of that, quick reminder to like, follow, subscribe, so that way you don't miss anything that we have going on here, specifically the these weekly videos that come out on Saturdays, and the live weekly meditations that we have Sunday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Those are streamed right here to YouTube, so join us on Sunday nights for that. So yeah, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that way you don't miss anything that we have here. All right, so let's get right into this week here. We're going to start out on Sunday, July 20th, with the moon in the sign of Gemini. In the moon of sign of Taurus, and then it's going to move into the sign of Gemini a little after 6 a.m. Eastern Time. So really the sign of Gemini all day, and we don't have any major aspects that are happening this week that are exact here. So that Gemini moon is going to take us right into Monday, July 21st, and that's where we have our first aspect of the week. We have Mars conjoining the south node of the moon. I made a quick note of this on a previous video when Mars entered the sign of Virgo, that it's been slowly getting closer to the south node. So you may find that this conjunction energy has been slowly building over the time that as Mars has been in the sign of Virgo here. So a few different things that can happen when any planet comes into contact with the south node. You can have a decrease of that planet. So if we think about the north node as something that amplifies, or something that has a desire for, or something that we lust, something that pulls us towards, the magnetic that we are moving towards. So that is an increase. So when planets are in contact with the north node, they can increase their natural significations, or the things that they typically stand for. So when the planets are in conjunction with the south node, the other end of the nodes, the tail of the dragon that is associated with release, letting go, continuous release, and releasing and letting go of something, and something falling away. So we have a decrease versus an increase. So we could have a decrease of Mars energy here. There could be lack of motivation. It's an earth sign, so the things can be tangible. The power and the strength energy may wane a little bit here for this quick little aspect as it's coming through here. The ambition to release, south node releasing, letting go, constantly releasing and letting go, where the north node is constantly wanting to bring more in. So you have the insatiable appetite to bring more in, and then you have that insatiable desire to let go, release. And this is the tension of the north and south node, the eclipses, as well as where we find those nodes with our own birth chart. So that ambition to release, ambition coming from Mars, and the release coming from the south node here. And since it is Mars, it could be a little bit gruff, and a little bit, there could be a little bit of grit to it. So there could be forceful release, there could be anger, there could be aggression, or even just the motivated, like, I know I have to do this type of motivated releasing type energy. Or a release that is the result of something that is a little bit more problematic. Mars can be the aggressor and can cause a little bit of trouble for us sometimes, right? The south node can be related to past events, so there could be a history here. South node within its own right has history, so things coming back up forcefully, maybe even a visceral feeling within the sign of Virgo is all fair game here. Maybe things that have bothered us under the surface on some level that we haven't necessarily let come out. Maybe that will come out in some way here. So just kind of being aware and being conscious of that. Erasing parts or components of something, of some sort of process, especially where Virgo is within our own chart, comes forward for me here. I'm thinking about the fact that this conjunction is in a Mercury-ruled sign, the sign of Virgo, and Mercury is currently retrograde. So the idea and the process of like components and pieces being taken apart and examining things is a theme we have right now with the retrograde. So it feels like with the South Node energy and the retrograde energy, it's very possible that little pieces or things start to kind of be erased, parts, pieces, components, maybe small little details. And that's not always necessarily a bad thing, right? Like releasing is a good thing, but so is taking in. So it's finding a little bit of balance there. Purging, really just that forceful letting go of something, whether that is physical things, again, this is in an earth sign, or something maybe a little bit less tangible. I feel like this might not be a great time to, on one end it could be, and other times it could not be, but like cleaning, organizing, getting rid of things, unless you're really trying to purge, unless you really just want to release all the things and not regret it afterwards, like you go through and you clean your kitchen and you get rid of a bunch of things and maybe like donate them, and then you wish you would have had that one thing that you donated at some point. So silly little example, but something kind of like that coming through, you know. And then we have a square to Venus that we're going to talk about for Tuesday, so that can be a little bit difficult too. So this could be a little bit problematic energy for some of us, but it could also be that kick in the ass to release something that maybe we haven't released, or you know, something that is coming up for us within the Pisces, Virgo axis eclipses, and releasing those things. So that's what we have coming through here on Monday. If we roll through to Tuesday, that Gemini moon is going to take us right into Tuesday, and the moon is going to move into the sign of Cancer around 8:27 a.m. That Cancer moon is going to make a couple aspects, but we also have a couple planetary aspects to talk about this week. So like I mentioned, Venus is going to be making a square to Mars. I find that it's interesting that they are both in Mercury-ruled signs. So Venus is in the sign of Gemini and Mars is in the sign of Virgo. So details, changeability, they're both mutable signs. They're both signs that are found in places of the year. The zodiac is completely based off of the solar story and the path, right, of the sun throughout the year. They're both Mercury signs are situated in points where the quality of light, or the amount of light that we have, is shifting, is changing. Gemini comes within the solar story within a symbolic level. You can look at it from the northern hemisphere perspective, but really it's a symbolic story. The sign of Gemini is the sign where we begin the shift in the handover from light gaining to light losing. So 0 Cancer is the solstice moment where the sun is at its highest peak, and then it's going to slowly start to drift down, right? Just before that is Gemini. So Gemini initiates that process of the dark starting to come back in. So you have that play of light and dark, you have that changeability, and you have that shifting there. You move to the sign of Virgo, and you go from where the light has slowly been losing, but it's dominant, and then all of a sudden in the sign of Libra, the dark becomes dominant. So Virgo is the sign that comes before Libra and hands over from light to dark. So both of them facilitate that shift and that change within the light half of the year. And then Jupiter handles that on the dark half of the year. So that changeability, that ability to shift, feels like it's built into this aspect here. There's a challenge from Venus to Mars here. Give me something to work with. Venus in Gemini says, I want more details, I want more information, I'm curious, I want to find out about this thing. Mars is sitting with the South Node here still. If we go ahead and I'm going to take that away and bring the chart up here so that way you can see it, and I'm going to roll it here forward to Tuesday, so that way you can see this here. Okay, yeah, right here. So we have Mars at 20 degrees, that's where the South Node is. You can see the North Node in opposition here, and then we have Venus situated at 20 degrees. So Venus is making the square to Mars. She's making a square to the South Node, which means she's also making a square to the North Node at the same time. So Venus is in this position where she is at maybe a little bit of a crossroads. She's looking at the road ahead. She's looking at the north node. So again, where she wants to go, the things that draw her in, where the appetite is, where her current focus is, where she's wanting to learn more information because she's in the sign of Gemini. So she wants to bring in more experiences, more processes, just more information and more energy in general. But she's also making that same square to Mars and the south node at the same time. So she is looking at what she can release while she's bringing in more information. In the sign of Gemini, that can be a lot going on at one time and could maybe even be a little bit overwhelming. The desire to release, but also the desire to move forward. That road ahead and the road that is behind us are both in focus. So taking things in and letting go. This can either be confusing or this can be really, really productive, motivating, and empowering, right? You could feel like we're just fully moving forward in some sort of way, but really within that releasing type way. So like, what can we release in order to allow us to bring in a new perspective, new information, new little details, more Gemini type things, right? Venus in Gemini really just wants to feel into the conversations and all of the communications here. And with Mars being with the south node, there might be a little bit of aggression here. There's going to be some conversations. Like I said, Venus is kind of saying, spark my curiosity, tell me, show me what I need to release, show me which way I need to go. And with Mars being with the south node, there could be a little bit of grit that goes along with it. So it's like, let's talk it out, but there might be a little bit of grumbling, but sharing, communicating, social connections that allow us to move forward as well as allow us to release. Is there something that you need to let go of in order to feel more light and airy, more Mercurial-like, or more Gemini-type like? Uranus has just moved into the sign of Gemini, right? So we have some electric and exciting energy in the sign of Gemini, which is an exciting sign to begin with. We also have the sun moving into the sign of Leo this day here. Take a peek here. Yep, on this chart here, it's already ingressed into the sign of Leo. This sets us up for the new moon that we have coming through here this week. There is strong energy in the Leo house. I mentioned this last week. When the sun enters the sign of Leo, there is strong, courageous, bold, extroverted, fiery, passionate energy. And always a focus when the sun is in Leo, but with the Mercury retrograde and the new moon here coming up, we have a big focus and emphasis on those life areas where you'll find Leo and where you could find the sun within your chart too, because that's the planet that rules the sign of Leo. So big focus on the Leo house here. As the sun enters the sign of Leo, you're going to notice that it makes a sextile to Uranus. So any planets that are going to ingress into a sign, think about that relationship to Uranus, because Uranus is sitting at 0 degrees of Gemini here right now. So that sextile brings in some extra passionate, excited energy. It's motivated. Sextiles can be subtle, but this one could be really, really empowering here at the same time. Mentally uplifting energy that fills the self. Leo, the heart space, that just wants to be filled and wants to be uplifted, right? Leo or Uranus is in the sign of Gemini, so the mental capacity. Fire's burning bright, I think about with Sun and Uranus aspects here, with the sun in its home place, the sign of Leo, right? Leo is the temple of the sun. It's the place where the light is fixated within the summer season of the zodiacal wheel, within the solar story, within the life cycle of the sun, right? There is youthful energy. There is excited energy in the sign of Leo. There is excited energy with Uranus anywhere that it is, but when it's in the sign of Gemini, there is mentally excitable energy. This could be a little overwhelming for some people. I could see where that could potentially be the case here, but it could be a helping hand also as well. So, as this energy comes through here, and if we, last week I talked about, I'm gonna go ahead and roll this forward here so you can Tuesday. So you can see that there. Yeah, I think last week when we were talking about Mercury turning retrograde, we talked about like a shift in confidence, whether we need to like rekindle a fire, bringing some sort of energy back. This aspect could have a little bit of a helping hand in that. So when it comes to confidence or originality or bravery or creative spark energy, it could burn. Fires can burn really, really bright here through this aspect. And subtle empowerment is not all that bad, right? So that's Tuesday coming through here. So that Cancer moon on Tuesday is going to take us right into Wednesday, July 23rd. And as the sun is going to move across those early degrees of Leo, it's going to make a trine to Saturn right before it makes a trine to Neptune. So the sun and Neptune here, I think about structured energy, but passionate structured energy. It's a trine, it's a fire trine. So there is creativity, there is spark, there is passion, there is drive, and there is motivation. However, there's Saturn also. So there is reserved yet strong energy in these fire signs. There is stamina, youthful energy in both, really in all the fire signs, but within Aries and Leo, those are the two first fire signs within the zodiacal wheel. So fire sparks energy, right? It initiates energy. So the youthfulness, the spark, that shine in the eye, the stamina type energy, there's guidance. I think about the sun and I think about that eternal energy, that eternal, like the infinite intelligence energy, God, source, universe, whatever it is that you want to call it. I think about determined energy, Saturn, yet excited energy. The sun in the sign of Leo, very exuberant, very extroverted. Both Leo and Aries, all the fire signs are masculine signs, so they're a little bit more forward. So if the transit to Uranus gave us a little bit of excitable energy and maybe amped up the nervous system a little bit, then this trine to Saturn could kind of ground us, bring us back down to home base here. I think about that youthful energy coming into contact with an older, elderly type energy. So I think about wisdom, experience, I think about decay. Those are all Saturn type things. Coming into contact with the sun, youth, initiation, start, eternal energy. So that which is unchanging. The sun is unchanging, right? Saturn, if it represents death and decay, it represents that which is falling away, where the sun represents that which is always there. So how can those two come together? That's a really, really interesting thing for us to consider, how we can have those come together within our own lives. So how can we have that energy, that excited energy to go forward with our creative passions and stand up for ourselves and really just allow ourselves to be fully filled up in a very youthful, exuberant type way, but then also have some sort of receptivity to more experienced energy, maybe to some sort of elderly knowledge of some kind coming through here. Interesting aspect that we have coming through here on Tuesday. So then if we have the trine to Saturn on Wednesday, then if we roll through to Thursday, the July 24th, we're going to have the trine between Sun and Neptune here, as well as our new moon at 2 degrees of Leo. So the sun, excitable energy with the aspect to Uranus, and then stabilizing, grounding energy with the trine to Saturn, and then with the trine to Neptune, creative, magical, inspired energy. So structurize, and then let go and dream. Set up the plans and the goals, and then allow yourself to be fully immersed with it without hopefully getting too lost within it. Being intoxicated by things can sometimes be a good thing if they're things that are going to be worth our time and energy. If we're just fully enveloping ourselves in something that we are passionate about, then that can be a good thing sometimes, right? So allow yourself to be fully immersed. Otherworldly guidance coming through here as Neptune and the sun. So I think about, again, going back to that eternal energy of the infinite intelligence, God source, the all-knowing energy being represented by the sun here, right? And then Neptune representing that otherworldly energy, thinking of our guides and our teachers and our angels and whatever the guiding forces are, little symbols and messages that come through in different type of ways here. So there's really some magic that can possibly come through here for us. You know, intuition, knowing, understanding, those things are all very possible. But I also think about energy being a little bit foggy and then being clear, or being clear and then being foggy. When I think about the sun, I think about clarity, right? Like when the sun's out, things are illuminated. You can see everything. You can see everything in the daytime, right? As long as the sun is out, which it is, even when it's cloudy. So the sun illuminates, but Neptune has a way of deceiving, blurring lines, making things a little bit clouded or maybe not quite totally clear. So wondering about a fog lifting or a fog coming in and how we can utilize that. Trines are usually beneficial, is typically beneficial energy. It might not always come off that way right away, but usually it's these two energies coming together and working together in a harmonious type way. So, you know, maybe we need to disconnect in order to reconnect here. Maybe we need to enliven somehow, and maybe there needs to be a little bit of a cloudiness of one thing in order to spark a curiosity and a little bit of magic and creative inspired energy for something else. You know, a shadow side of this could be that feeling too good and too motivated leads to a misjudgment. You know, that's possible if the sun illuminates and Neptune can desire or deceive sometimes. Aries doesn't always think first, which is where Neptune is. That, you know, it's a cardinal sign. It just kind of jumps into things sometimes without always thinking. Then it could be that we are just feeling way too good and we are motivated by our desires and our feelings, and then we misjudge, and that could be the fogginess, and then things are clear too. So it's like the regret afterwards type of thing in a little bit of a negative type way there. Possibly and potentially. So then we also have the new moon, 2 degrees of Leo coming through here. This new moon is in opposition to Pluto. Let me roll the chart forward here again for us so we can see the new moon. I usually set the chart to noon, but I'm going to go ahead and roll it to where the sun and moon are both at 2 degrees here, so that way you can see that they are in basically exact opposition to Pluto within minutes here for the new moon. So it's also in trine to Neptune and Saturn still. It's starting to wane. Well, it's starting to wane, but it's still very much in effect. And Mercury is retrograde. It's just about to become under the beams of the sun here to where it's starting to be impacted by the upcoming Cazimi and the retrograde. So there's a little bit of a loaded energy here, and there's some shifting with this new moon. Pluto, the opposite to Pluto, can be very, very deeply transforming for many of us, but it usually comes with some sort of uncovering of something or having to deal with some sort of shadow in some way. Pluto can bring us lots of rich energy, but it's going to show us the deep, dark things that maybe we don't necessarily want to look at, little shadows, bringing things up. And it doesn't have to be the skeletons in the closet. It can be that, you know, just small little detail of some sort of process, probably wherever Leo is within your life, or the Leo Aquarius axis falls within your life. And there can be a deep dive into the shadows of just what hasn't been seen or what has not been addressed across this Leo Aquarius axis. Strength, power struggles, individual versus collective energy, me versus them, together or against, polarizing energy in any sort of opposition. But Sun opposite Pluto has a lot to do with especially in the Sun in the sign of Leo, has a lot to do with my energy, my autonomy. And then Aquarius energy has a lot to do with the collective energy. Which way are we going? Is the current paradigm, does it work, or do we need to go to something higher? Typically, Aquarius always has, typically Aquarius is visualizing or idealizing a paradigm that is a bit above, doesn't mean that it is or isn't, a bit above the paradigm where we currently are. So looking for progress. Aquarius is a very progressive sign, where Leo is much more individually focused, focused on more like individual progress, where Aquarius is much more collective or communicative, community type, progressive type energy coming through here. Passionate energy, fire, Leo, right? But primal energy at the same time, Pluto. So that can be very, very powerful. Social ideas and constructs versus our own perspectives. Seeding moment related to all of this because it's a new moon, right? So this is a strong lunar cycle that is going to be transformational for many people, but transformational does not necessarily indicate whether it is positive or negative, or that we are going to have a completely positive or completely negative experience, right? I think there's a lot of, there's going to be a lot of people that this transforms and brings is very, very empowering, but there's also going to be a lot of people that this is a bit of a difficult lunar cycle for, and there's going to maybe either feel a little disempowered, or like our pride is hurt within a way. Mercury's retrograding here. The new moon is opposite the sign of Leo here. So there's just some very dynamic energy. So empowering energy or stripping of power here, depending where you find yourself on the axis here of the new moon. So this is really, really interesting energy, very, very powerful, very, very strong, and it's setting us up for the entire lunar cycle. So remember that the energy of the new moon comes through the entirety of the lunar cycle. It's not all doom and gloom. There is, like I said, it can be very, very empowering. There can be some magic within it. We're still within the trine to Neptune, so we still have that energy. It can be deliberate, Saturn, right? It can be very focused, very strong, very stabilizing, but it can also be very destructive, Pluto, right? Think about the Tower card within the tarot deck. Think of Neptune. You could think of like the High Priestess type energy, or you could think of the Magician card that might be a little bit more like Mercury, but you could think about the different ideas of these different things. Very deliberate type energy with Saturn. So magical, deliberate, destructive. Loaded bag, right? So that's what we have coming through here for the new moon in the sign of Leo there. And that's on Thursday. That is a majority of the aspects that we have coming on this week here. So we're going to just come on back here and follow through to Friday. That Leo moon's going to take us through Friday. The sun is going to conjoin Mercury here that day, and then that Leo moon's going to take us right into Saturday, July 26th. The moon moves into the sign of Virgo about 5 p.m. Eastern time, so split time there between the signs, and then it's going to make a square to Uranus. So we have a few real strong aspects here. We have a very strong lunar cycle that is initiating this south node action of releasing and letting things go. Can be very, very strong and powerful. And then when we have Pluto, a new moon that is opposite Pluto, there can be even more of a deep dive. So we may really be getting into the details and the nooks and crannies of whatever is going on within our lives here this week. So there might be some depth, there might be some intensity, there might be some cathartic type moments, but there can also be some really, really good things that come from it here at the same time. So I hope that this week is wonderful and empowering for everybody that is watching and everybody in general. I don't want anybody to have difficult times, but some of the most difficult things within my life I've learned some of the best lessons from. So there's that for what it's worth here. So thank you for sticking with me through this video. If you've made it this far and you haven't already subscribed, then I'm not quite sure what is holding you back from doing so. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check back next Saturday for the next weekly video for next week. And I would like to invite you to join us at our weekly meditations. Sunday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, streamed live to YouTube. An astrological meditation that starts out with looking at the astrology of the week, starts out with a conversation and setting up a little bit of an angle, and then we move into a meditation. And it's a beautiful way to set up for the week and create a bit of a intentional relationship with the energies that are coming through here this week. So lots going on, lots to meditate on here, right? So I will see you back here next week for the weekly video, and I look forward to seeing you Sunday nights for live meditation. Take care, everybody, and I hope you have a absolutely wonderful week.